just found out the true reason my dad wanted to start a business with me. In 2018, my dad told me he was planning to open a plant shop and asked if I wanted to help since he was still working his full-time job and would not have the time to manage the shop. Now, my dad loves plants. The house is filled with them and he comes home every day after work to care for and check in with them. He's extremely knowledgeable about them too and could tell if a plant was sick and how to treat it without ever having gone to school for it. He told me he really wanted to try it and hoped he could make something out of it. At this point, I had just gotten discharged from the military and wasn't doing much, plus it was rare that he would ask for my help, so I said sure. Within a week or two, we opened the shop. We planned the prices and the stocks, and he taught me the basics of how to take care of various plants, how to make terrariums to sell, and everything else I needed to know to run the shop when he wasn't around. We sold succulents, various flowers, bonsai, seeds, and anything we thought looked fun and interesting. He sourced all of that himself. He came by every day when he had a break from work and even offered delivery services to customers. Unfortunately, the shop didn't last long. The rent was expensive and foot traffic was low, so he was essentially bleeding money. Didn't help that he insisted on paying me a full living wage either. Eventually, I couldn't bear to see him work so hard and lose so much money, so told him I didn't want to do it anymore. The shop then closed and that was that. I've always felt bad about how it ended and regretted how I didn't stick it out longer with this thing he worked so hard for and loved. L decided that once I made enough money in the future I would help him restart this business. Cut to a few days ago, I casually asked my mom if my dad ever mentioned anything about starting the business again since he was so into it. She was confused at first, then told me the truth. He didn't start the business because he wanted to, he just wanted me to have something to keep me busy. I didn't mention why I was discharged from the military earlier, it was because I tried to unalive myself after a severe bout of depression. He came up with the business idea while visiting me at the psych ward, after I mentioned how doing nothing all day makes me feel worse. He heard this little comment of mine and just went for it. He knew he was going to lose money, but he did it anyway. We're not rich by any means, and he used his savings to do this. My mom wasn't supposed to tell me any of this. He knew that if he had told me the truth in the beginning I would have said no because it was too much trouble, and if I found out now I would just feel bad. As long as it was something that helped me, he was okay with things as is. I don't know what I'm feeling about this. Like most Asian dads and sons, we've never really been affectionate with one another, not with words at least. He's always been more of a silent supporter, showing up to every achievement and struggle I had. He never said that he cared, but he visited me multiple times a day every day when I was in the psych ward. I want to thank him, but he would be uncomfortable. I want to say I love him, but he would do the boomer equivalent of cringing. I do plan to thank him at some point, but I'm also feeling uncomfortable because that's just not how we do things. In the meantime though, thank you, Dad. I love you. Roommates set the thermostat to 50 degrees Fahrenheit when it's 35 degrees Fahrenheit outside. For context, I share a 5-bedroom home with 4 other small families. My neighbors are from a Spanish-speaking country and don't know English very well. The language barrier is large between us. The way this house was built, in 2015, does not allow for very good ventilation between rooms or floors. Additionally, the HVAC system does not have thermometers in each room. Instead, it's combined with a thermostat, one of which is located in the hall I share with my neighbors. It reads 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius, on average, but that's with both bedroom doors closed. Thus, the temperature in either one of our rooms can vary drastically. Since we share a thermostat, you can see where this is going. The landlord has expressed his wish to keep the thermostat above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Celsius, as long as it's colder than that outside. Easy enough, open the window when it's hot and close it when it's cold. My desk is next to both of our windows, so that's primarily been my responsibility. Both parties tend to avoid conflict, so we haven't discussed this face to face, or even through text. Every so often, my roommate and I will notice that it's uncomfortably hot or cold. Every time we've checked the thermostat, it's been set to either 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees Celsius, or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. Naturally, we set it back to heat to around 64 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius, and cool it to around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This does not suffice for our neighbors. They have been, over the past month, continuously setting the thermostat back to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, even when it's been below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 degrees Celsius, outside. But, here's the kicker, the AC wasn't even running until yesterday. The air coming out of the vents has been cold because most of our HVAC system is in an uninsulated garage. This knowledge was gifted to us by the landlord, who also doesn't speak Spanish, and he assumed we would pass the information to our neighbors. Yet again, as predicted, they set the thermostat to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. But this time, we let it run like that all night, making sure to grab all the blankets from the shared laundry room. Remember, when the temperature in the room changes while the door is closed, the thermometer can't tell until the door opens. They sleep with their door locked. So, all night, the HVAC system was blowing frigid air into their room. We woke up the next morning with the thermostat set between 66 degrees and 70 degrees. Sweet, sweet victory. I know this is petty, but man oh man is it nice to have a comfortable temperature to sleep in. Planted bamboo that overruns my neighbor's property over a security light. About 4 years ago I used to live in a nice HOA in a small town in Texas and enjoyed having only one neighbor over my backyard fence. The plot was about 2 acres and the other side of the backyard butted up to a hay field. The stars were beautiful at night because of virtually no light pollution. Until the neighbor decided to install an incredibly bright security light over their back porch aimed right at my back patio and bedroom windows. I tried to ignore it at first and put shades in the bedroom, but out on the patio, it was like having a bright LED headlight in your face all night. I consulted the HOA about adding a privacy addition to my fence to increase its height, and they said no because it's already at the 8 feet max allowed height. They said there was nothing in the bylaws or whatever about bright lights, so nothing they could do. Diplomacy. So I hated for this to be the thing where we finally had a formal greeting after 3 years of back porch waves, but I walked over and rang the doorbell with $20. I politely explained how the light was causing the aforementioned nuisance and asked if there was any way I could convince him to point the light down or in a different direction, and even offered to buy him a case of beer, the $20, out of goodwill, and even a new motion sensing light. He seemed nice and agreed to point it down, but after waiting a month, nothing changed. I went back to have another polite conversation and he said he had changed his mind and was going to leave it on every night and leave it pointed as is. Petty revenge. Needless to say, I was a bit upset. Diplomacy failed and started figuring out how to win. If the military taught me anything, there are always ways to adapt and overcome. So I started researching fast-growing plants to create big privacy walls and reading through the HOA bylaws and city/state ordinances about what I could or couldn't plant and if there were any repercussions for encroachment across the property line. I quickly discovered running bamboo, despite being very invasive, would grow super fast to make the neighbor's house and light disappear from view, and there was nothing on the HOA/state/city books to prevent me from planting it or cause legal recourse if it spread and grew on his side on the fence. The only thing he could do is cut anything that grew on his side of the line. So I pulled the trigger and planted a bunch of golden bamboo, which grows and spreads crazy fast in Texas and grows up to 20 feet tall. I didn't care if it took over the fence line because his house is 15 feet from the fence while mine was 50 yards away, so I planted a bunch right against the fence and only put a root barrier on my side to prevent it from spreading into my yard. Within 6 months his house and light were gone from view, replaced by a pretty bamboo jungle row at the edge of my yard. Within 1 year he complained it was growing into his yard via mailed letters. They went right into the trash with no response. He rang my doorbell once and I looked at him through the window but just didn't answer the door. I unexpectedly sold the house and moved 2 years after planning for a career opportunity. It's been 2 years since I sold and I just checked the property on Google Earth and his entire backyard is bamboo.